tell us a bit behind the video. How do we position the film? Is it captured? You say that the most important thing is the process of capturing the highest ratio. Tell me a bit more about the behind the scenes, what's happening. One thing I always say, whether with clients, when we're talking, when I give classes, whatever it may be, is that the most important thing or half the battle is always digitization. A good digitization ensures that any subsequent process, whether restoration or simply access, will be satisfactory. But digitization literally makes everything else go wrong, no matter how good a restorer you are, no matter if you have Phoenix Diamond, PF Clean, DR Snow, or whatever. It won't turn out well if the digitization is poorly done. We always prioritize that the digitization be as good as possible, because we also have to consider that the majority of these copies will only be digitized once, or it will only be possible to digitize just once. We are the last bastion, at least, for the preservation of this type of material, and you have to think of it that way, because many films are sometimes so damaged that a couple more months beyond when you digitize them and they become unusable. Yes, exactly. And well, there we see that essentially the Cintel is a camera capturing the signal, and we also saw that it's connected to DaVinci, and you say you give it automatic capture, or can you define how much you want to capture for each channel? How does that part work? What I really like about the Cintel is that the integration with Resolve helps a lot, because I literally press Control Shift double and my scopes come up, as you've seen there, and I can grab and check. I can calibrate the light, meaning what's important is a white balance, but mostly it's a white balance more inclined towards the color of the light, meaning what changes is the color of the lamp to try to give the camera an image that has the highest possible values for each channel. That's the most important thing, because, sometimes I've seen many people who capture or do types of captures and stick too closely to the film's white balance. The white balance of the film, I would say, doesn't exist. I mean, because at some point, someone recorded it with certain colors and so on, that white balance doesn't exist. At some point, this film might not even look like that. It probably looks magenta or a different color. So what I want to do there is maximize the image. Later on, if I have a reference or the director of photography or whoever, I can give it the color in post-production.
Okay.
But the thing is that the capture has to be like a blank canvas. I need to have my complete information of red, green, and blue, and luminance, which is the most important. And that is the ideal to start
Directly.
and set the scanner to have the maximum amount in the 3 capture channels. What I always do is give the film a first pass. It doesn't matter if it takes me half an hour or how long it is. I give it a pass to see I'm not going too high or too low. And passing means hitting play to observe the scopes and check the RGB. Clearly, I don't just capture it on the first take and say I've done it, because what happens if you do that at some point, I don't know, a lamp, a glare or whatever,
Yes.
the whites are blown out, and it's terrible when you see in the analog a line like that. White is, which has no information, seems terrible to me. And sometimes when we've received files like that, and then, you don't know what to tell the client, because it's like that digitization is useless. Honestly, sure.
Thank you very much.
The information has been lost. And for example, something that I am always someone who is a strong advocate.
Fine, thank you.
Having a complete manual control of the process.
Sure.
I find the ideas of manual scanning and all that, of automatic scanning, interesting, but I believe there always needs to be a human component. And indeed, that's when you say, okay, I give it the first pass, detect, and then manually correct. Because one could say automatic scanning to the Cintel, and that would be a result. Sure, one could say automatic scanning, and what will happen is that it will take the white point, the one it assumes is the white point, and adjust it to that moment. You can look at the scopes I have down here. You can see what's happening. It's taking it's not even referring to any of the points. It's just saying, well, I guess this has to be white. So up or down, right, totally. And it turns white and removes the information. See, I get your point. In the worst case, you'll make what could be used as a guide, the soundtracks. And the soundtrack is a film that was black and white with high contrast. It never had information. And if that's taken as a reference, well, at that point, everything is lost. and there you can see in the RGB parade shown by Fabio, as a Pambapacito, each channel is split in two. So the one on the left is the automatic, the one on the right is the manual, and you can see the amount of information that was captured manually. Also, at this moment, these videos are experiencing compression because they're being streamed via YouTube, but Fabio prepared a Frame.io link where you can view these videos. So Fabricio, can you help us share them in the YouTube chat so you can later take your time to see each of these processes? I have put all the scopes, luminance, and tools to exemplify better, because there are processes where I will be switching between the three different types of, between the three channels. Well, you can also see that here. The red channel is more or less the same. The green has maintained its luminance echo, and especially the yellow, well, the blue is more or less the same, very different. All right, so you scan the film, and does the restoration process end there, or what comes next? Once you scan the film, the digitalization process would end, which is basically where other processes would start if you have a commercial or access purpose in mind. That is, in my opinion, I always say this, the majority of clients I talk to, the purpose of a film, for example, in a preservation process ends with digitization. Once that digitization process is completed, and let's say you want to do a restoration, a remastering, or whatever, you are now creating a new product. That new product is the restored product, the remastered product. Upscaled, the new product, the one that you'll put in a DSP, is already a completely new product.
Of course.
So the previous one is finished, and this one begins here. Okay? And there you specifically mentioned three important terms that need to be understood: digitization, remastering, restoration. And I imagine that at some point in the client's process, it's important to clarify the services. Clarifying the services. Digitization is basically the capture. It's the process of converting from analog to digital.
And
try to fit that gigantic unlimited analog package into a square digital package that best represents the technology. Okay, perfect. And then what comes next? After that, for example, what we have is, in the case of the Cintel scanners, which is very specific, the Cintel scanners capture in a format called CRI, which is a format, we could say, raw. It doesn't expose you to the raw controls, but it does give you the full linear dynamic range of the sensor. But it doesn't expose the ISO, the white balance, or anything else. It just gives you that flexibility and displays it in 709. Once you're there, what we do is convert that to a standard format called Cineon. A Cineon is simply like a log. It is just a logarithmic representation similar to slog, Blackmagic log, to everything we've had. It is literally the initiator of all those processes. When Kodak had the idea to digitize films, what they wanted was to fit the large analog package into a small digital gesture, and they basically created that curve to preserve as much information as possible. Of course, we do the same because it's a standard format, and it also allows us flexibility when doing color and restoration, because the dynamic range of film, as those who have worked with films know, is very wide. It is very difficult sometimes to especially maintain control over the highlights. Then you select the format, capture it, and it remains like a film. And after that, you move on to DaVinci to resolve to the color part. What's next? What are the steps for that cleanup, so to speak? Normally, in Modernos, we always try to do an additional process, which is balancing with true light. That is the one light, as it used to be called. What happens is that when we finish capturing, sometimes the image doesn't come out. We could say aesthetically pleasing, like the image we have on the left here. I mean, because my idea when digitizing was to have the maximum information from the channels.
And that's all.
I didn't care about the balance. I didn't care about skin color. None of that mattered to me. I just wanted to have the complete information. Yes. So what I have to do after that to maximize, for example, to expand that information and to have a good restoration process is to adjust that balance in color before creating my DPX or during the process of extracting my DPX. And the one light, which is basically an adjustment of live gain or live gamma gain. Yes, because this seems like you expanded it a bit. Yes, I've basically expanded it. Still, when you who are watching already have a loot of Rec 709. In other words,
Yeah.
this is not the logarithmic
It's
image.
exactly the
I'm not
same.
comparing logarithmic and 709. Both are in 709. Otherwise, they are in 709. But the information from the image on the left, when I captured it, because of how the film was, I had to make these adjustments.
Sure. Exactly.
Of course, I could present this to the client or start working on it within the limits of restoration, but unfortunately, it wouldn't look good. Oh, additionally, a very important point we'll see later is that if you try to do restoration with the image on the left, since the channels are unbalanced, it will fill with artifacts because the algorithm will not know what is in the image on the left. What is a pixel of one color and what is a pixel of another color, nothing more. It's just necessary to redo this adjustment, eliminating what had already been done in digitization, of course.